All right, guys, welcome back. I'm Terrence, and it's Ian. And earlier we were talking about virginity and the gift. To me, the gift was very important in the beginning of my life. I went through some struggles. I went through some pains in my life. But also, one of the main reasons why I gave up or unwrapped the gift, my virginity, at such a young age, was because of peer pressure. And a lot of men will fall to that because of peer pressure, and we don't really understand, I guess, the true value of our gift. What is your perspective of your gift, and at what age did you lose your gift, I guess?
I would say I had to be a teenager
Okay.
when I lost that gift. But I continue unwrapping it though, due to some trauma of losing a sibling at an early age
Okay.
that caused that. And I just looked at sex as a sexual conquest once you start getting a taste for that.
Okay.
Like, yes.
And would you say that losing, was it a friend or a brother or aunt, cousin,
I was my younger brother.
a younger brother?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
11 months older than him.
Okay. So it wasn't a twin brother, you're 11 months older?
Yes,
And how did he die?
gun violence.
Gun violence?
Yes.
Okay. So would you say that kind of propel you into being promiscuous or like finding love, seeking love after you lost a loved one to fill that gap?
It kind of actually it propelled me into having a lot of children
Okay.
with women, thinking that if I wasn't going to be here, that I would leave this lasting impression with them.
Oh.
And that's what it kind of led to a lot of that for us, to where you're not at that time you're not guaranteed that you're going to see 21 with the actions and the things that you're doing. So as you're having sex with certain women, you look like, well, I'm going to leave them with this seed if I don't be here, or whatever it is. But as the time got older and you see that you're going to live a little longer, shit just had to wrap it up, got to get a little bit better than what it was.
Okay. So what age were you when you lost your brother?
15.
15? Okay. And your first, how many kids do you have?
4.
4? And your
Yes.
first kid was at what age?
16.
So in your mind, you lost your brother. That was traumatic to you.
Yeah.
And your thought process was, I want to go ahead. If I die, I can leave something behind
Yes.
for my family or with.
Basically,
the
for
kid.
I was for my family, but I was really doing it for my mother.
Wanted your mom to have something because she lost somebody.
Yes.
So she can. Okay. How many kids? You said 4 kids.
Yes.
So how many kids, baby moms or kids' mothers or wives do you have?
I have no wife,
Okay.
none whatsoever, but I have 4 baby mothers.
4 baby moms.
Yes.
So you started your first one at 16, and your last one's at what age?
18.
Wow.
2 year span.
2 year span. You have 4 kids
Yes.
to fill the gap of losing your brother
Yes.
for your mother,
Yes.
just in case something happened to you.
Yeah. And I had to cut that number off at 4. Like, hold on.
Okay. Totally understand. So how old are you now?
I'm 45.
45?
Yes.
Okay. So there's this period of time from 16 to 18 that you had your kids, and you're still a kid yourself, to be honest.
Yes. I
And
was.
you had to grow into the man you are today.
That is true.
So what is your longest relationship, would you say?
The longest relationship I had was about 8 years.
About 8 years?
Yes.
And-
with a beautiful young woman.
Okay, perfect. And was that with one of the kids of your mother?
No, it wasn't. Actually, me and this young lady didn't have any children. She actually became like the mother of my children. I guess I kind of gifted her that because she can't have children.
Okay, perfect. And the reason I'm asking is this, because as I think back over my life and me with my gift, I lost my gift at a young age. My brother was still alive at that time,
Yes.
but it was shortly after, like yours, after your brother died,
Mhm.
then I kind of fell in this void too, where I kind of became promiscuous, and I was trying to fill this void with love, and it's more like self-discovery, trying to figure out what it was. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know about you, but me, I was mad at God at that time when my brother was killed.
That's understandable. So was I.
Okay, and because I was mad at God, I almost felt like the separation that happened. And with that separation that happened, I went and turned my back on God and went on this self-discovery. And man, you talked earlier, I am a Christian through and through, and I love God, I love Jesus, and I know that you saying that your motives for rewrapping your gift wasn't necessarily Christianity. Your celibacy was for other reasons.
Yes.
And if we can talk on that a little bit.
It was more like I saw this movie called S with Superman, and something stood out when he asked him, man, how would you know what you're capable of unless you challenge yourself? So for me, the one temptation for us as men is women.
Okay.
That's one temptation right there. So, man, it was a matter of trying to conquer that, because we'll always find ourselves with a woman saying we won't do this and that, but as soon as she say the right thing or hit the right note, man, we gone. We over there, whatever it is, trying to do that. So for me, it was always like, man, to get myself out of that kind of jam and I want to have a healthy relationship with someone, let me conquer my temptations to anything that I want to do. It would be me alone and acting on that. No one could force me to do that. So if I want to be promiscuous or monogamous with my wife or whatever it is, that's a choice I'm making.
Yes.
With either other woman that I'll choose. And that's what it was about, just conquering that temptation, man.
Wow, that is amazing.
Like honestly.
What is the longest time you've ever gone without having sex?
Without having sex?
Yes.
3 years.
3 years?
3 years.
Okay. Was that the only time you've ever tried, or how many times have you?
Nah, that was the second time.
Okay.
The first time I did it for 10 months.
Okay.
And when I came off that, I had a lot of sex within a 2-week span. And how ironic was that one of the young ladies who I ended up having sex with during that time. Matter of fact, she was the first one that kicked off the celibacy, to break it. And that was the one I ended up selling with. And that's the young lady I was telling you about earlier, when the lady asked me earlier, did I love someone? And that was that young lady who I had fell in love with.
So during your celibate times, is it more like self-discovery, or what are you?
Oh, you learn a lot about yourself.
What are you seeking?
Like, which time, the first or the second?
Any of it.
During those times, it's always about challenging yourself. Like we'll never know you'll never know if you can do a backflip unless you flipped it.
Right.
Make the attempt. It's about pushing yourself. And then as I got older, it just taken on a moniker as, think about this, right? We say a genocidal mind state. But see, everybody think a genocidal mind state pertains to us physically doing violence to ourselves. We're not taking along the psychological mindset that we do to our people and ourselves and our women when we're running around being players and want to do this and that, and not understand the effect it has on them. Right. So that was another reason for change with that. And just knowing that, man, that I wasn't raised that way.
Right.
And that's just it. Like, no, like we can do better. And it comes down to choice. We choosing to play the field when we don't have to play the field.
And sex is definitely more than a physical thing, right?
Man, sex is definitely more than a physical thing.
That has soul ties. That's what I was talking about in the book.
Soul snatching, earth shattering. Like, it's supposed to be fun, and it should be with somebody who you like being intimate with.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, it should be. Why? Because I just think it makes great sex.
Yeah.
Because y'all building on that chemistry.
Yeah. And from a Christian standpoint, is your husband, your wife, or whatever that you're with, or your chosen partner that you're supposed to be with. And I think that sex is supposed to have purpose.
Yes.
And a lot of that is lost during the times of what you're going through. Like, I lost focus on the purpose of sex when I was going through my hardship and my pain, because all I could think about was losing my brother and losing my mom. I just needed something to fill that void, to keep my mind off of that pain. Mm. So it's a substitute to throw into the void, so I can just not focus on what was hurting me and focus on something that was good. But the moment that sex was over and the person was gone, or whatever the scenario was, I was empty again.
Yeah.
Like
any addiction, right? Yeah. Or like what they call any fix. It gets you up here.
Yeah.
And once it's gone, you still left with the results or whatever that was ailing you.
Yep. So you told me that you was on the longest you've gone was 3 years.
Yeah.
And the person that you became intimate with after the 3 years, what happened there? The moment that happened, yeah.
What, with her?
Yeah.
She had come out of a 7-year relationship. Mm-hmm. We haven't talked for like 5 months, but I knew her prior to that 10 years before then. Mm-hmm. We used to mess around. So as we was talking, adults flirt with each other. And the flirtation get carried away sometimes. Mm-hmm. And sometimes as men, we got this thing like we don't want, what is it, ego or pride, that we don't want a woman challenging our manhood. That's basically what it come down to.
Right.
But even if she did, I really wasn't budging or whatever it is, wasn't going.
Okay.
It's just that at that point, man, I liked her enough to want to be intimate with her.
Okay.
And I chose her at that time to want to be intimate. What I found out though is, man, sex changes a lot of things.
Wow. Sex changes everything.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, you right about that. And to this, we can't be cool right now because of that.
So you guys were cool
Talking every day on the phone.
Every day on the phone.
Every day on the phone.
And then the moment you had sex, everything changed.
Changed.
And now y'all aren't cool anymore. Or really talk anymore.
We don't talk every day no more like that. I can't call her. Like, the energy is different. You can tell.
Wow.
It's just, man, like, yeah. And they just make you think like, man, we shouldn't have just slept with each other. We should just stay being cool.
Wow.
And I would have preferred that, like, honestly. But once again, temptation, she acting, I'm acting. I thought we was being adults about it. We can go ahead and do this or whatever it is, which I wouldn't have mind moving forward with a relationship with the young lady. But it just, her response and her energy just, man, it just turned me off wrong. Like, yeah, like, I wasn't expecting that.
And the crazy thing about it is today's society and what we have today is a generation that's moving forward on dating apps. And the dating apps made almost promote sex, if I can say that. And it doesn't really promote relationships.
No.
It promotes sex rather than relationships, or rather than you getting together. And they have some out there like ChristianMingle.com and all the other stuff, which I think is still hiding behind the fact that dating apps has the more powerful stigma, I guess, of saying, hey, a quick fix for an addict will be this.
That's what it sounds like. You're right. That's basically what it is.
And with that mindset, a lot of the people in these generations, my generation and generation behind, are more or less like, hey, I don't have to commit. I don't have to do all of this. I'd rather just, have sex or whatever, just be with the person and not deal with all of the other stuff that comes. Because one thing that me and you were talking about earlier was, in a relationship, or you meet somebody in the beginning, there's a lot of baggage.
Yes.
And you have to sort through the baggage and all of the stuff that the women may bring, along, clashing or colliding with the baggage and drama that you have yourself.
Yes.
And it makes it more of a cesspool, almost. As you say, you're sitting there, you're trying to get to know them, and they get to know you. You have to decide what you want. Yeah. And it almost seems like sex is the easiest thing to move out of there. And it's not that me and Ian are here promoting sex, but what we're telling you is this. Real life happens.
Yes, it does.
And within this real life, the 2 years, from 16 to 18, you have 4 kids by 4 women.
True that. With no intention of trying to be with them long term or nothing like that. No connection or nothing.
And are you originally from Chicago?
Yes, I am.
Born and raised?
Yes, I am.
And to leave a legacy for your mom because she lost somebody.
Yes.
And here you are, 45 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a relationship with your kids?
A great one.
Wow.
A great relationship with them, honestly.
Wow.
Not their mothers, but with them.
With them.
And that was because they didn't ask to be here. And even when they was born and growing up, that was always my main intention and focus, was building a relationship with them, because those are my children.
Okay. So they were made out of love for a purpose of love, to give your mom something to love in case something happened to you. And you, as a kid then, still took on the responsibility to father your kids, to let them know that you're there and you love them.
That is correct.
That is amazing. That is amazing. So another thing, you said the longest relationship was 8 years. You've been in and out of scenarios, situations. We both determined that sex is more than being physical.
Yes, it is.
Sex is everything. And the moment that you cross that line, it can cause a lot of problems.
Ooh.
If you can go back in your past, what would you change? Especially with dealing with your gift. I know you say you lost your gift at an early age. If you can go back and stop that or talk to that little kid, what advice would you give that little kid?
Man. So I don't like having regrets, because my children are my gifts from that. But the only thing I would change, because man, we don't really take into account how long like will really take place. Like, man, I apologize for before. Like, man, them women didn't have to. I didn't have to put them women through that.
Right.
Them 4 different baby mothers, because each one of them could probably be married, living their own life, or doing whatever it is. I could have altered that from them by putting the kids in them like that.
Right.
And that's the only thing that, but I'm happy my children here. It could have been 4 children by one woman, would have probably been great. But the fact that, nah. And I applaud myself that even though what I was going through mentally, through all that traumatized, I still fathered them kids and raised them children right.
Yes.
Like, yeah, and like honestly, with the help of my mother, like, yeah.
That's amazing. Was your dad around in your life?
Nah, but I know who he was.
Okay.
And far as that, with my father, and I love him to this day, me and him got a great relationship now. I was just a little bit young at the time, but I learned what he didn't do, well, not to do with my children. And some people always look at it, use their parents as an excuse why they didn't do this and that.
Okay.
And I try to tell people this, like, man, learn from them what not to do.
Wow.
So you don't repeat them same mistakes. So you're like, I just know I wouldn't do my children like that. And that's how I take it. That's what I told my father this recently. I learned from you what not to do what you did to do with my children.
Right.
Straight up.
Well, the reason I wanted you on here today was I love the fact that Tara's in the book.
Yes.
Aubrey.
Yes.
So with Tara being in the book, what I ended up doing was I wanted you to be here too.
Okay.
You know, Tara's faith build.
Yes.
Where you became mad at God and God wasn't your driving force in life. But both of you guys have practiced celibacy on different levels.
True that.
Whether it was the intention of moving forward because of God and holding your gift and not unwrapping it, or rewrapping your gift because of God, or just self-discovery or whatever it may have been.
Yes.
To evaluate yourself and figure out what is wrong with you. And those two perspectives at the different ends of the totem pole, I think is key in life. And we don't get it. A lot of people don't. It's either you're a Christian or you're not Christian. You're either going to be celibate, you're going to, as you said earlier, smash or, crush women because you're hurt or whatever you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're going to respect women or respect yourself or respect men. And as we had conversations earlier with a young lady,
yes,
she was saying that it ain't just men that think this way.
It's women as well.
Women as well that think that way. Because you were going through your 3-year celibacy, and the woman that you ended up crossing the line with just mainly wanted to
smash.
To smash you and get that. And after she scratched your 3-year,
it wasn't. Yeah.
Then she just kind of went about her way. Yeah. So it isn't just men that think this way. It's also women too. But hurt people
yes,
at times.
Do.
You know.
That is true.
But the bigger picture, I definitely want to thank you for attending with me today and coming on here and us explaining to the audience of the raw nature of men. With the man-to-man talk and how we perceive things. It isn't necessarily that your objective is to go out and smash or just to go out and do this. There are some men out there that seek celibacy, that seek, an intimate relationship with one person, that seek that partnership.
Yes.
That seek love, that want to be married or whatever it may be, and you have goals and you're trying to strive towards those goals, but you do trip and fall at times, but you get back up, you may rewrap your gift, you may go back in celibacy, and you father your kids or whatever. But sometimes there is a root cause of the hurt, the pain that may cause I guess you to be promiscuous, if you want to say that, or the drive. Again, I unwrapped my gift due to peer pressure. My friends talking to me, you unwrapped your gift because you want to leave a legacy behind for your mom because she lost, you lost your brother. Yeah. But now years later, you're looking back, you're like, if there's one thing to change, which you mentioned earlier, you dropped your seed into these women that your purpose was to leave behind a legacy, but they had no idea of what
they was getting themselves involved in.
Yep, getting yourself involved in.
I get it.
Yeah, definitely, I appreciate it, brother.
No problem, Tans. I enjoyed this, man.
Hopefully we can have you back on the show with different things that we're going to talk about, man.
Okay.
God bless.
Likewise.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Round Table. And I know that we just had 2 different conversations. One was with Candace and with Tara. The other one was with me and Ian. But you're able to see 2 different variations of man talk and woman talk about the gift and our experiences that we went through. I hope that in some way or some shape or some form that we're able to relate to you and you understand our heartfelt moments of why we may have unwrapped our gifts or why we may still be holding on to our gifts. I know that each journey was very unique to each one of us. And to talk about this today was very heartfelt. It was actually a relief and also a burden at the same time, if I could say that. Me, again, I have unwrapped my gift, I've rewrapped my gift, and I have a son, and he is my gift from the gift. And I love him dearly. But at the same time, once you cross those barriers, there are some consequences. There are some things that, you may regret. There's some things that you may hold to a high standard. And earlier during the conversation, you heard Tara talk about how she was ashamed of her gift at times. And me, I was ashamed of unwrapping my gift. And there's both two opposite ends of the spectrum, and there's shame that was sitting on both levels. But today, we had opportunity to talk to Ian, to Tara, my story, and you also had opportunity to have Candace here to discuss the topics with us. And before we close, I want to bring everybody back to the table so we can actually sit and talk about some of the things that we felt today, what we experienced, and some last words that we may want to give to you, encouragement or whatever it may be. Because one thing I do want you to understand, and what we're trying to reiterate throughout this whole session is, it's never too late to rewrap your gift. You should not be ashamed if you're still holding on to your gift. Hold it for the right person on the right day, and don't be ashamed of it. It's a gift. And if you have unwrapped your gift like me, and I have my son, and Ian talked about earlier how he has his 4 kids. He still turned around and rewrapped his gift. It's never too late to rewrap your gift and hold on to the value of it or whatever it may be to you. And let's go ahead and have this conversation with the guys and the gals. And we do appreciate you again for coming today and participating with me. So Ian, as you read the book today, do you have any questions for me, Tara, or?
Her. I was curious about how did you know your husband was the one?
That is a great question. We had dated for about 5 years, so I didn't think he was the one. I was kind of in a hurt spot, and I just wanted to be happy, and so he wasn't a believer at the time. We didn't share the same faith background. We met ballroom dancing, so we enjoyed doing things together, but I kind of was, even though I wanted marriage and family and kids, I just kind of put it off in the back of my mind and just wanted to have fun and not worry and not think about that until the world started changing and quarantine started happening, and we couldn't do a lot of the fun things that we used to do before. It really forced us to talk, and we kind of realized that our differences in faith really, that was a huge issue. So I knew at some point that we would probably need to end our relationship. I just didn't want to do it. And it was last summer during all of the shutdowns and everything that we started watching sermons online, and God just got a hold of his heart and completely changed his heart and life and mind. He understood that the Bible says, like, we need to be transformed with the renewing of our mind and not think as the world does, but to think in what the example that God set before us in his word. And his life just completely changed, and I could see the evidence of that in the way that he thought and acted and how he treated me. So, after that happened, we knew that now that we were on the same page with that, we could now go forward, and that anything that we faced, we're actually very different from each other. But I knew in that moment that even though I had been at times unfaithful in my walk with God, like he was still faithful to me, and that was like almost like my gift to me, and knowing that it was God that changed his heart, and that allowed us then to go forward in our relationship. And I knew at that moment that that was what was the next step for us. And we started talking about getting married, and then he proposed, and it was definitely, I thought that God would kind of be like, this is the one, like it would be more, like some big firework type moment, but it wasn't. But I think that's what people need to understand too, is that God works in the everyday, and, we've chosen each other. And I think sometimes we want that fairy tale, and we realize that life isn't always like that, but it's those moments when we find that God is still faithful and he's just leading and guiding us every day. And it's not always something that's a big boom and here it is, but just in those moments of seeing how his life had changed, and then us then now being focused and our lives being focused together in the path that we're both walking in now. We're both walking in the path of what does God want us to do next as a married couple.
Cool.
Okay.
So, Ian, your walk wasn't a spiritual base.
Nah.
It was more just, what do you attribute it to?
Growth and self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
Like, yes.
And you didn't grow up with a Christian parent or not in church.
I was Baptist, I guess. Well, how it actually happened, I was introduced to Christ at an early age.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came a certain point, my mother gave me and my younger brother a choice if we want to continue going to church or not. And so at that time, me and my brother, we chose Samurai Sunday. Like
You chose what?
Samurai Sunday. It's
Okay,
going on
yeah,
Sundays.
uh-huh.
So we chose to stay home on
Okay,
Sundays.
gotcha.
But we already, she introduced us to God early. Like, yes. So there's certain things, like I tell people, that was instilled in me that I know.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I was running around in these streets, I tell people, what I learned at home and what I was learning in the streets, man, that was clashing.
Yeah.
Like, that was like, man, like hot and cold, it was clashing hard. Like, really hard.
So your mom set the foundation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the queen right there. Like, yes, that's most definitely is the queen. Like, when I tell people about her, as far as that, when I was going through my darkest times, and that, even as I got older now to this day, and that's why, same way with my children, man, that woman never gave up on me. Like some parents do with their kids, just give up on them, do this and that. I guess because she knew what kind of child she raised and what she had. She just never gave up. And as long as she did that, I never gave up on myself. Granted, I was stubborn, but I was cocky and confident. Like I knew better. That's the difference I tell people. You got to know, you know better. When you know better, man, you try to make a conscious effort to do better. And that's why when I started seeing things and learning things, it was like, nah, we're around here calling ourselves kings and queens, but how can we be kings and queens and we just playing peasant activity when we doing this kind of stuff?
Perspective.
So I just looked at it as me being the king, I'm gonna be a great king. I'm gonna love my woman, I'm gonna love my family. Like sex is supposed to be enjoyed and great. So even when I was going through that the first time, I had a lot of my homies and my homeboys that asked me, man, what you going through a midlife crisis? I'm like, no, I ain't going through no midlife crisis, man. Why I gotta be going through a midlife crisis? Man, because you saying you ain't smashing nobody, you ain't doing none of this and that. I'm like, nah, I'm making a conscious effort, man, because one thing I learned, man, what? I want to conquer my temptations. What's more tempting than a woman?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's incredible. It reminds me, I like the show Seinfeld. There's an episode where he realizes that, where George realizes that everything he does in his life has just had a terrible outcome.
Yeah.
So he decides to do the opposite. And I think that's really cool because I work with sex trafficking and that issue. And so the concept of sex and seeing how when it's taken outside of how God created it to be, how it can have very damaging effects.
Right.
And so I think, seeing that, I think, man, if more people just decided, hey, this wasn't working in my life, let me just do the opposite and see what kind of effects that has.
Sometimes we don't, I guess I want to do people acknowledge it. When you're being intimate with someone, you can be naive as you want. You transferring energy. Mm-hmm. Like what do they want to acknowledge in that? So if they got bad energy at night, you're going to be receiving some of that bad energy. And it's a chemistry thing. Like it just became more important to me. Yeah. Like I just one woman. That's just it. It's always been that way for me. But I was just acting on that other side because I could act on it. Mm-hmm. But I knew that doing that, like, man, my mother didn't raise me this way. Mm-hmm. Right. Like honestly, she ain't raised us like that. Like, nah, my mother, she was always the father in the house. Like she always had a husband. Mm-hmm. Like and I looked around and my uncle everybody else was married. Like what we doing now with my this is new. Like not having kids out of wedlock and doing all this. This is new. Like no,
I think it's more apparent, but it definitely isn't new. But it's definitely more in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. But what's interesting about it is if you want to study sex and what it does to your mind and your body, it's not just religion. You can go and look into it through science. There are plenty of books that show the transfer of energy and how you will become different. I mean, even what it does to your body as a young woman, if you're not prepared to handle the things that it does to your body, I mean, then physically, you're harming yourself. And we're not even just talking about STIs. There are so many other things to it. So we run around and we sleep with whomever, and we take it carelessly. I know I've done it for years, and thinking, oh, this is the next relationship. But how do you know? You haven't established the relationship. And but you've given away something that you can't get it back, and you almost change that relationship totally, So making these decisions, as you say, over and over, or conquering it, or it's more important than we even put into perspective, and we make it seem like it's the least of importance, and I think it's the most.
Yes, it is.
It's kind of like playing chess. You have to protect the most important piece on the board. And at times, the gift is the most important piece. You don't reveal that until the very end. And a lot of us, as you're making these moves in relationships, thinking that this person is the one or whatever, we should hold that piece back. Like you're saying, you just hold it as long as you can. And from there, when the time is right, then you'll know.
Yes. And it's always that you act on that decision, which everybody does. And it comes down to if you ultimately, do you want to do it or not? You making that choice. Like everything is always about a choice. Your life is a series of decisions.
Yeah.
And even to that point, right? I think in the book we kind of talk about there are some scenarios where people don't have choices. And some may argue and say, well, they put themselves in that position where they were raped or where they were trusting this person and the person took it from them or whatever. There could have been signs or should have been signs. They overlooked the signs. But there is a gray area there. But also there are some people, such as babies and everything else, that don't have a choice, that had their virginity or their gift taken from them. And they just feel like they're...
Not just babies, adults too.
Yeah, adults too. That, had it taken from them and they felt like they didn't even have a choice. And to me, I think that's the most important part of today, as we went through these conversations that we've talked about, different topics that no matter who you are or what you've been through, you can always recapture that value, or as you self-reflect and understand who you are, realize that your value in yourself is very important. If you're seeking God and you want to put God on that pedestal, or if God isn't the head of your life and you're just going on a self-discovery embarkment, like whatever that may be for you, I think it's very important that it's never too late to start over, that you're not alone, and that you have different people on different levels that have been through a lot of these things with you. And as you heard today, from Ian's story to Tara's story, my story, that from hurt and pain to self-discovery to mad at God to, hey God, here I am, and I'm still ashamed of my gift. And there's been different scenarios where you have held onto your gift the whole time, and we have put down our gift, picked it up, rewrapped it, and realized the value of it as we continue to strive with the relationship, as our heart still begins to understand, and heart work that's happening to strive to who we want to be. Again, I want to thank everybody for attending with us today through this session. Again, there are a lot of people going through a lot of different scenarios. If you are in a sex trafficking scenario, there's different things that you can do to reach out and get help, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is so important to say, because, if someone had a situation where they were forced into doing something they didn't want to do. First of all, we talk about the gift. So you might have had something, been raped or been assaulted, but your gift is still something that you completely give. So even if you've had the physical act done to you, you still have that choice to give that to someone in a relationship where it is a mutual thing.
Yes.
And I just also want to reiterate the fact that in a relationship, it's not that you have to feel like this is an expectation. In fact, if you are in a relationship where you feel that is an expectation, you need to really consider if that relationship is worth staying in, because you should never be, someone who loves and cares about you should not ever be forcing you to do something that you are not comfortable with. That's not what a healthy relationship looks like. So if you are in that situation, or you want to even find out more information about trafficking, I'm part of an organization called Damascus Road. We've got a website, damascusroadproject.org. There's also a 1-800 trafficking hotline number that will post with this video, so that anyone who is in that situation where someone's forcing them to do something that they don't want to be doing sexually for money, that they can call that number and get help.
That's awesome.
Again, thanks everybody for attending today. And one thing I want to say is this: we're here. If you ever need us, reach out. Again, we have Terry here with her organization. Along with that, we all are humans. We've all been through some stuff, and we'd definitely love to hear comments. Like us, follow us on the Instagram with Terrence _WTW. You can actually follow me on Facebook if you want to. Candace and Jay are a part of this also, so you can actually look them up, follow them also. But we're here today to tell you that we understand what you're going through. We've come face to face with our gift. We understand that you can also unwrap and rewrap your gift. At any point in time, you can actually take that gift, rewrap it, and save the value of that gift for somebody who is very important to you. Again, we love you. We're here for you. Thank you for being with us. God bless.